Welcome back to Speedrunner Showcase, the most watched Marble It Up speedrun interview show in human history. Today we have, of course, a very special guest, and he is none other than Catzs. Why don't you say hello?
Howdy. That's technically true. Sorry to keep you waiting for so long. It has been a long time coming. This run is like 2 years old now.
It has been a long time coming, and this run was set just before Speedrunner Showcase really became a thing. We'll talk a little bit more about the context of the run as we get going, but very, very excited to have you here. And how are you feeling about Speedrunner Showcase?
I'm ready to take a trip down memory lane.
Ready to take a trip down memory lane. That sounds awesome. So if we look at the day before this run was set, let's have a look at the leaderboards on speedrun.com from the day before this. This was on June 17th. 2020, almost 2 full years ago now, and you were sitting just behind Spakai, and it's hard not to talk about Spakai's deathless run in the context of this, but
It's impossible, actually.
It's impossible, yeah, because that run was a landmark in the game, and we didn't really realize there would be another big, huge landmark in this game that would come again so quickly as your run ended up being.
My whole mindset going into the path that I had for this run was more defeatist than anything. It was,
right?
I don't think I can possibly get to Spakai's level.
That's an interesting thing
unless
you can say.
I do something that he doesn't do.
And we'll get to that. We will absolutely get to that. So let's get started on the run.
No spoilers.
And there'll be plenty of time to talk about how that goes. The run is starting right here. And we're on learning to roll. As always.
Mm-hmm.
So I also did notice there's a 3503 on your splits right now. So why is that there and not on the leaderboard?
I think I landed that PB in a race just off the cuff and didn't record it. Sorry.
Lessons that, you gotta learn them the hard way.
Lesson that I didn't learn because I've done that multiple times.
Oh, no. Not since this run, haven't you?
No, not since this run. This is still my PB.
This is still your current PB. And even though it's almost 2 years old, it's still a remarkable run. And, even the current place on the leaderboard is very, very high on the leaderboard.
It's still third, right?
Still third place, yeah. Which is crazy. It just goes to show the quality of this. I know, right? Chapter 1 passing by, you've specialized mostly, I think, in the later game. To a certain extent.
I don't do anything special in Chapter 1. I think I get like a 203 here. It's possible to go way faster than that now, but
right.
I don't bother because the time save is just so minuscule, and I'm just not. I hate to say it, but I'm just not good enough at the game for that to matter.
Fair enough. And yeah, I think that's an approach that a lot of runners can and do take. Now, you've been really active in the community for a very long time, and you still are active in the community, even though this PB is a little bit older. But a lot of people who are watching may not know who you are, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Howdy, I'm Catzs.
Yep.
I hail from Marble Blast Gold and various Source Engine games.
You got the speedrunning history.
No, this is my first speedrun game, besides just casual stuff in
right.
Marble Blast Gold.
Cool.
But I don't think it will be my last.
No? Okay.
No. More on that later, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I look forward to hearing about that then. That's very bit of a tease there. Coming into Chapter 2, and you had a 201 Chapter 1, which by modern standards is pretty average.
Bad.
Pretty average.
Yeah, it's okay.
By the standards of June 2020, that was quite decent.
I guess it's necessary to mention that this run was done before Fast Transitions was discovered.
Yep.
Which, by default, loses me, I think, over half a minute.
Yeah. So that's definitely worth considering. And I know I mentioned that in another Speedrunner Showcase as well, when the run that beat this one for the world record eventually. did use those fast transitions to do it. So yeah, that actually is a really good point. But yeah, 201, this was before fast transitions. This was not before analog turning, but I think analog turning was something that people used in specific places and not as fully throughout the run. But you were a bit of a pioneer on that.
Keyboard players didn't have access to NDC's X input tool back then, so I did have that advantage. But no, I'm analog turning all over the place in this run.
Okay, yes. So
I was about as good at it here as I've ever been.
And you were about as good as, or you were better than basically anyone else at the time, I think.
No, Space Kitty was better than me.
At analog turning specifically is what I'm saying though.
I disagree.
Okay, interesting. Maybe we'll have to disagree on that for now. But yeah, I can see you using it here to get a little extra acceleration on wave pool.
I do have that handy dandy input display, so
yeah, that is
you'll be able to tell.
Pretty helpful. Were you playing this on GameCube controller?
I was.
You were.
I was.
Yeah, so that obviously gave you the notches necessary for going straight forward perfectly, which is definitely an advantage that keyboard players would have over some other controller players, while retaining the ability to use analog sticks for turning. Yeah, very useful.
I have since switched over to a PlayStation 4 controller, mostly just because I find it a lot more comfortable to hold and play and hold down forward for long periods of time with.
Makes sense.
It is definitely harder to get cardinal directions with it, but I find that it's not impossible. I can build the consistency there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
you can see that in some of my modern runs.
And some runners have modified their controllers to add a true north notch to them, as I have.
I feel like I'm speaking to one.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I actually don't know anyone else who does that.
Really? I feel like at least one other person did that.
I'm pretty sure. Okay, so who else is there? There was Woody. He played stock.
Okay.
Sakai played stock. I'm not sure about C Murder, but he probably plays stock. I don't know. And there's not very many controller players left nowadays.
I know, it's just a thing that I advocated for, so I guess it was always wishful thinking that somebody picked up on that trend.
Yeah, but, this community is not big on modders. Like,
I guess not.
The Steam input can do most of it anyway, so there's no need to go ham like people did back in Ultra.
That is true, although I have played more on Switch than on Steam, so maybe that's part of the explanation.
Mm.
Anyways, all that aside, finishing up Chapter 2 here in an incredibly respectable 6:11. Let me just say that's way faster than I've ever done it, and I think way faster than most players have ever dreamed of doing it. So well done on a solid early game that only ties your previous PB.
Those are some impressive numbers, huh?
Yeah, 6:11 is amazing. I always think that anything under 7 minutes is a good start, and anything under
I always found that
40 is a great start.
I always found that chapters 1 and 2 are just the levels you need to keep your cool in, and chapter 3 is when you need to start jogging your muscle memory, exercising your strats.
Yeah, well, we got these
and resetting if you mess up.
And
sometimes.
just to I want to correct your terminology. It's not strats, it's stratses.
Oh please.
Oh please.
I didn't come up with any of this.
Well, it doesn't matter because it's stuck. It's stuck. Catzs has got stratses, as we used to say. And we should probably keep saying that because you introduced a lot of new and innovative strategies to, obviously to individual levels and also to this full game category. So
I kind of disagree with you on that. A huge majority of stuff that's done in RTA now originated from individual level play.
Sure.
It's more just.
But it is innovation.
For a while, I was pushing the envelope on. Yeah, how much IL stuff can fit into a run like this.
And I would consider that to be innovation. I think if you introduce a new strategy to the full game category, That is an innovation. And you know, you can say, well,
Yeah.
you didn't
While we're
invent
talking
something
about
brand new.
innovation, this is a level that has none. I'm just doing the old River Vantage route. This
Well,
level's improved so much since then.
I'm not even sure necessarily about that. Most, oh, right. Yeah, you didn't do
No, it's faster, trust me.
the reverse one. Yeah, the fastest way was definitely known at the time, but it's still very rare to see that. But the second fastest way you'll see all the time nowadays, and that just wasn't a strat that existed when this run was done. That's a good point. All right, 4 stairs.
The way that I usually chose to route the game, with just like the tiny little nuances, right?
Right.
Is aiming for consistency above all else. So against other players who are playing at their best, they're almost always going to go a little bit faster than me.
Okay.
But no one can hit their best consistently. And
That's true.
so I feel like consistency was my best
Yeah.
my best skill in this game, and that's why I won a lot of races.
That consistency does win races. I mean, it does also set world records, especially in these longer categories. But yeah, it wins races for sure. And I think if we ever had Marble It Up speedrun tournaments, which is not something we ever really got into, but I think you could have been at the top of those for sure without too much effort, honestly.
I took Chap Tourney. Come on, we haven't had nothing.
We did have Chap Tourney. That is correct. Which, you know, also based on consistency, because it wasn't just the one chapter. You had to consistently get quick chapters. Let's see what we were doing for Cog Valley here at this time.
I don't think it's changed.
No, I don't think it's changed either, but it's just, it's crazy to me that, you know, quite early, as early as DK's run, this was getting done.
Yeah.
Or I guess DK's run, it wasn't first try, but this time it was.
Making a couple tiny mistakes there. Movement's not perfect, but...
Yeah,
I mean,
and
hey,
you can always nitpick this, right? And you can do that with just about any speedrun.
I can probably see the mistakes better than almost anyone.
A 10:06 after Chapter 3 is also quite good. I think a sub 10 has only happened maybe a handful of times.
Speaking of nitpicking the mistakes, I missed the sub.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing only the speedrunner can say, you know?
Yep. That's true. That is true. But anyways, like even with the new strats, like specifically River Vantage, as you pointed out, you know, it's very, very seldom you'd see Chapter 3 finish this quickly, even today. So that's, you know, it just goes to show how far ahead of its time this run was. And this run stood for a really, really long time, and I'll get back to that.
I think it stood for at least...
I want to hear your guess.
At least 6 months.
At least 6 months. Okay, interesting. It's a pretty good guess. I know exactly how much, but I'm gonna bring that up in a bit.
You're the historian. I'm not.
Yep. I mean, as we are going through Sunspire, we probably should have something to talk about anyway. So, okay, I'll tell you.
I guess what I'm doing right now is like the one thing that I've cooked up all by myself.
That is true. I actually completely forgot that you put this in, and I was just assuming that it was Boring Sunspire, and I was gonna talk about something else. But here we are, and you were doing that strat in June of 2020 in full game. That's pretty cool.
With that said, it's gotten a lot better since then.
There are easier strats that are just as fast now, yes. But still, that was way ahead of its time. So I love seeing that, and yeah, very, very cool. Very cool. So when did you... if you could remind me, when did you get into Marble It Up? Was it right away at launch, or was it a little bit afterwards?
I got in between... Okay, so I've never owned it on Steam, on Switch, so it was Steam launch, and
Right.
I got in, I'd say like 3 to 4 months before Challenge Update.
Okay, so yeah, it was pretty much when Steam launch happened. So
Yeah.
that would have been the end of 2018.
End of 2018, start of 2019. That sounds about right.
2019. So you would have been playing this game for about 18 months at the time of this run. So certainly not inexperienced, and you know, you had would you be able to guess how many hours you had played at this point?
At this point, I think it was over 1K, but I'm not sure about that.
Over 1,000. Okay. Um, so yeah, you had the experience, you had the skill, you had the prior experience, the Marble Blast, and you just jumped ahead 20 seconds on retrograde, so that's awesome. So you are no stranger to these games. You just want to just
No,
everybody
if
knew that you were at the top of the game in a lot of metrics, and it wasn't a surprise to see you fighting for this world record.
Yeah, I don't tend to believe in talent as like a genetic thing, or
Right.
even as
Yep.
I don't know, but if there is one thing that can break that theory, the physics of these kinds of games has been rolling around my brain, no pun intended, for a long time.
No pun required. I mean, you know, some people are going to have an aptitude for these kinds of things, and you know, it's not going to be a replacement for skill by any means, but it's fairly clear that you have an aptitude for this, and all the time you put into it was really, really effective at getting you to the top.
I haven't talked very much about the run itself, but I think this is one of the most interesting ones to talk about. At this time, like just a week before this run, probably less, Hatchet had recently found out that it's actually faster to just go straight through the level instead of doing the super jump skip.
Why
I was not
Hatchet?
experienced enough to get this.
Yep. Yep.
Oh dear.
That hurts, and if you didn't know this, that was the only death of this entire run, which is a shame because it did displace, it did obsolete the only deathless run which has ever been done, which was that 3442 by Spekai, which this run beats, but it's never happened since then. So if not for that run, this would have been the second and fastest deathless run ever performed.
Players like Hatchet have gotten close since then, but
Pretty
strats
close,
have
yeah.
just gotten so crazy and so hard since then that I think that still might be a long time coming.
Yeah, it's hard to say. You never know. It depends on how active players continue to be. But yeah, Deathless Run with current strats is really, really hard. But even the strats you were doing here in this run are very, very impressive, I think.
At this time I was not optimizing for pure speed like I was with later chapter runs. I was just trying to get through the game.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
not
for
die.
sure. And you know what? It also balances out because there are some easier strats that have been found now that are just as fast as the strats you used here, like Sunspire, for example. So there's a little bit of both. There's a little bit of both, and you know, you're out here doing some of the fastest strats that were available at the time, and some of the most difficult strats that were available at the time, including Chapter 5, which is about to come up. We'll see a few of those. Most notably Stayin Alive, of course. Spoiler alert. But even before this run, you were kind of... I mean, I referred to you in my speedrun history video as the king of Chapter 5, I think. Because you had really dominated the Chapter 5 RTA leaderboards previously. So I think this is one of your strengths.
I would agree. I personally think that Chapter 5 is far and away the hardest segment in this game.
Okay.
I think Chapter 6 is easier.
Interesting, yeah, and to an extent, it's going to depend on the routes you choose for each chapter, of course.
That is true.
But yeah, I think there are a couple of super difficult and flashy skips in this chapter that kind of outshine the majority of the rest of the run. I can agree with you on that point. Yeah, Stayin Alive coming up next, so we might as well talk about it. Spakai's Deathless Run, there was one major time-saving strategy that he did not implement, and nobody had implemented at the time, and of course that is stay and skip. You watch speedruns today, most runners still aren't doing this, but the ones that are, mostly in the 35-ish, sub 35-minute category, as far as their times go. But you were the first one to put this into a run, and a lot of people would have said, and I would have said as well, that this was the reason you were able to beat Spekai, because you knew how to do stay and skip, and you were really consistent at it, and nobody else was nearly as consistent. I would say even today, there's nobody, except maybe Hatchet, who is as consistent at this run, at this skip, as you are.
I think Hatchet is more consistent at it now than me, but he's on keyboard, so that doesn't count.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, no,
what's funny is that's actually not true. You and I have calculated how much time this
yes.
strategy saves.
Yes.
I would have beaten Spakai without this.
You would have beaten Spakai by quite a bit. You're gonna... So, let's take a moment here, and we're gonna pause for a second. 39... sorry. 39. 43.91 is your time staying alive. No time travels, right? Spakai did it in a minute and 24 seconds. Minute 24.7, whatever. So you only saved 41 seconds against Spakai on Stayin Alive, but your final time ended up being 56 seconds faster than him. So you had 15 seconds faster than him just on execution alone.
I would have still edged him out.
That was with a death that you had that Spakai didn't have. You were still
and this was at a time
seconds
when,
faster, not counting Stayin Alive.
This was at a time where the kind of community's overall rolling skill and just desire to push the envelope on that and do more difficult strats was kind of just at an all-time low. We were at a point where we were like, well, this is what we got. What could possibly be done better than this? Of course, there's lows that can be done better than this. We're just not good enough.
And I commented a lot on Spakai's run about how good the execution was on all the small improvements and minor time saves that add up to making a big difference. But then this run kind of even took that a step further with a death still being 15 seconds faster plus Stayin Alive. I think that goes to show just how good your execution was and how, again, just how far ahead of the time. But I am going to, now that we're paused, I am going to take a moment because it is relevant. I want to point out another clip.
Oh, dear.
And this came from, this came from the Super Bowl 2022. This was in February of 2022. And Catzs did this run live in a race. And I just want to show you a second what happened with myself and Gluten commentating. Oh, yeah, we got to get Catzs. Catzs introduced this skip to the full game category. Showed a incredibly high level of consistency on this trick. Really made it possible for somebody to even think about doing this in a full game run.
He's not doing it.
Oh, no, he is.
Oh,
he's grabbing all the time travels along the way. He wants that $10 bounty.
And then going, oh my lord, Catzs. The confidence.
He wants the bounty. He wants to win. Oh my gosh!
Oh, that's skip!
Oh my gosh!
Catzs, that's insane!
What?
20 seconds with the skip! Catzs, that's insane! Who is this man? That was the craziest live skip I've ever seen.
Okay.
I am so balling. I am balling at any imaginable cost.
Dude, okay, so I'm gonna keep the run going here for a moment, and we'll talk about that.
Technical difficulties, I guess, because I didn't hear it, but I didn't need to. I know that is the loudest I've ever heard you get.
That one moment, and I'm gonna say this without any hesitation, because I've thought about this. That one moment is my favorite moment in Marble It Up history. Okay?
You.
And again, I've thought about this. It wasn't just because it was during a race, okay? It's not just because it was basically the fastest variation of stay and skip that you can possibly get. It wasn't because it was during the Super Bowl with live commentary and tons of people watching. That was my favorite moment.
It was all of that, right?
It was all of that, but the real reason that's my favorite moment in Marble Up history is because of who you are. And who you are is the person who introduced that skip, who kind of came back after not speedrunning the game for almost 2 years to do that in the race, while I didn't even realize that I was setting it up with the commentary. Like, we gave you exclusive time on the spotlight for this. And, you know, me and Gluten obviously just talking about
You were really hyping me up. You were really expecting
and I
me to land that.
I did not realize what I was hyping up, just how good it would be. And that moment really
we didn't have any
really
kind
happy
of
for me. I was really glad that happened.
we didn't have any kind of esports level production quality where we can go back a minute and splice in whatever needs to be shown to
No,
the casters.
we didn't have that. No, it was just kind of a stroke of brilliance, and Gluten noticing that you were about to do it and cueing me in so I could put you on the screen. And it was just a magical moment where so many things came together, and I was so happy that we were able to
Okay,
feature
so
you for that.
what's funny about that moment to me is I was incredibly pessimistic going into it. In my runner's POV of it, you can hear me, I think, under my breath saying, well, I'm just gonna mess this up anyway, might as well go for it.
Yep.
It was like my first time practicing stay and skip on a new controller.
Right.
And in practice, I was messing it up almost every time. And now I have only one shot at it, and we didn't even mention there was a bounty on that. There was a $20 bounty on landing the fastest in-game time on $10. Okay.
Yeah. It's in the audio clip, so the audience already heard that one.
For you, it was the greatest moment of Marble It Up history. For me, it was a $10 bill.
Yep. It was great, and there's so much more in this run to talk about, but I had to go back and point out that moment because there may be some people watching this who don't know who you are, and who
hey Hatchet, you want to give me another $10 for that? I deserve it.
Right? Yeah. I'll go ahead. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and sacrifice. I'm gonna give you 100% of the ad revenue on this video.
Okay, you don't need to do that.
there's not gonna be any. Don't worry.
You can keep the pennies.
Yes. Anyways, coming in here, we're gonna be finishing up, and you can see. Let's look at those numbers here. You came into chapter 5 39 seconds ahead. Right now, you're a minute and 22 ahead. That was a really good Vertigo start for the time, managing to stay alive and also get that checkpoint. You were pretty early on this.
Hatchet was the one who came up with that.
Yep, you were pretty early on that strat in the middle as well. And let's see what you do here for the tri-spinner. Yeah, nothing too modern,
yeah,
but again,
okay. If that was nowadays, I would have jumped on it and gone for a big old launch towards the checkpoint.
Yeah, but nobody was doing that at the time.
Yeah.
I don't even think that had been invented yet.
And I'm a minute ahead in my best pace ever. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, you're a minute and 23 seconds ahead. This is great. You're not only on PB pace, but also world record pace, and well ahead of world record pace for that matter. Yeah, so yeah, I'm just really enjoying this run, and I love being able to go back to these kind of moments in history. I was saying in DK's videos, almost kind of a little bit of a time capsule for how the game was at the time and what it looked like to push the envelope at the time. And so yeah, even just like Vertigo, I think is a good measure of how far the game had progressed at this moment.
And I feel like this run was kind of the mark of the start of diminishing returns on effort put into this game.
Sure. Well, every run after
this,
at least for me, every run after this, and we've talked about this, every run after this had to include stay and skip, or it would not be a contender for the world record, right? And so it just meant that anyone competing for world record, they either had to be incredibly skilled at it and very well practiced, or they were going to lose a lot of runs 16 minutes in. And that's kind of what happened with Spakai for a while. Until Hatchet came around and kind of was able to match your consistency, everybody was putting in way more effort on world record runs attempts than anybody had before this run, for sure. I can agree with you on that.
I can disagree with you slightly.
Okay.
If you take Hatchet's current world record and remove his stay and skip and just put a slow stand in there, it would still beat this run by quite a margin.
That was 2022, not 2020.
Fair enough, but
yeah.
It's not impossible to beat this run without stay and skip. It's just no one who gets that good at this game wants to do a run without it. It's just that cool.
Exactly.
At least to me.
Yep, and I don't think Hatchet would have gotten as far as he has without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we finally hit chapter 6.
Finally, chapter 6. Pretty standard as far as strats go. Danger Zone. I think you're probably going to do a slightly outdated Platinum Playground, probably.
Yeah.
But there's not really that much that's happened on this level for RTA.
I think Chapter 6 is probably my favorite chapter in the game to speedrun.
It is fun, isn't it?
To me, it's the perfect balance of flat fundamentals and off-the-wall crazy tricks to do.
Yeah, or even like
Even
the
if they're
ending of
not
Danger
that
Zone
hard.
is really flashy, but also really easy. It's a good one.
Like we'll be coming up to Radius soon. I think the fast finish on Radius looks really slick, but it's actually not that hard.
Yeah, I mean, on the contrary, for Radius, the fast start, which probably didn't exist at this point, is actually really hard.
You mean for ILs?
No,
Oh,
I'm
I
talking
forgot
about
about that.
what's get used at the top level in RTA these days. Yeah, but I still agree fundamentally. Like the fast finish looks really cool and is also pretty consistent and safe.
Hey,
But yeah,
we'll-
fast
we'll-
start we're not gonna see.
Okay, the fast start. Yeah, no, that's
So I said I would come back to how long this run stood for. This run stood for 207 days, which was about 7 or 8 months.
7 or 8 months, yeah.
Yeah, which is
Boy,
really,
that
really
was
cool.
powerful.
Was one of the longest standing runs ever. DK's run actually stood for 209 days though. As I discovered a little bit of research ahead of this, so you really, really almost beat him there.
Who was the one who beat me after this? It was Spakai, right?
Spakai beat you, and then Hatchet beat Spakai, and they traded it back a couple of times. But
That dastardly little German.
he stole the longest standing Marble It Up full game world record from you. But yeah, 207 days is still a really, really long time for this run to last, and it's not because nobody was trying to beat it. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that almost nobody could do Stayin' Alive, certainly not on demand consistently.
Okay, well, you know what? If I'm petty enough, I might have to just go back and beat Hatchet. I can't let him put me in 3rd place twice.
Oh my gosh. Yep. But yeah, 3rd place, as you said, is what this run stands today, which, again, almost 2 years later to be in 3rd place. I don't really have anything else to say about that what's already been said, but still blows my mind how far ahead of its time this run was.
It's not unheard of, for sure.
No, not by any means, but the game has also gotten a lot more popular since, or the category has gotten more popular since this time.
We're in a bit of a downtrend right now.
Sure,
a lot of people are just kind of
that's the nature of things.
pessimistic about the state of mayhem right now.
Fair. But also
But
this game
I think regardless
had waves
of
of
if mayhem is
popularity.
good or not, we'll still be coming back to this.
Sure, yeah, Classic is going to be around for a long time.
Classic is my baby.
Classic is wonderful. Hey, you and I have played a little bit of Mayhem multiplayer as well, which is very fun. And, you know, I enjoy single player as well, but even if it's not quite in a finished state yet, hopefully, you know, some people are going to be more optimistic and others won't, but that's
It's
how it
funny
is.
just how much you've gotten done in this scene just waiting for multiplayer to come out, huh?
I mean, multiplayer is my thing. What can I say? You know, and I appreciate having that beta. I've said it before. I got into this game for the multiplayer. I never expected to be a speedrunner or to be involved in the speedrunning community, but this is just kind of a thing that I've been doing while I wait for multiplayer. But I'm really glad that I am here and that
It ended up turning out really cool anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Imagine us just talking about that when I just did cool flips.
You just did cool kick flips, but honestly, compared to a lot of the other moments in this run, that one is a little bit almost common. Like this. Confluence. You must have been one of the first people to do this Confluence route. If not the first.
I don't know.
I don't know. But either way, like, as cool as kickflips are, you've innovated in a lot more in other places.
It's not that kickflips aren't hard. They are. It's just you can mess them up 5 times and still save.
Yeah, which is why second kickflip is on its own the biggest shortcut in the game, right? And it is the biggest time save which has been introduced to full game, which I can claim for myself because I was the first one to do it, only because nobody else was running the game at the time. So yeah, I can say that I introduced the largest time save in the category, and you introduced the second longest time save in the category. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, high five.
Oh yeah, of course it was much easier to incorporate. Much easier to incorporate kickflips than it was to incorporate.
Kickflips have
Stayin'
much. They have much less risk than Stayin' Alive. You
Yeah,
miss a
they're
kickflip,
way more
you go for it
forgiving.
again.
Way
You
more
miss Stayin'
forgiving.
Alive, you reset the run.
That said, I saw you skip the checkpoint on kickflips, so that was a little bit of a risk you took on yourself.
I was feeling
Knowing that you
confident.
could potentially miss and have to start over from the beginning on your first kickflip. So obviously you were not risk averse in this run. I know you talked about consistency and you talked about relatively safe strats and all of those things, and yet at the same time you did take a lot of risks that other people either weren't willing to take or weren't skilled enough to take at the time.
I mean, now with a lot of stuff that's in the category now, I feel like a lot of that can apply to me. Hold on.
Oh my gosh, I remember this.
Right there
I
is the
forgot
single
about
most
this,
memorable moment of this run to
Oh
me.
my gosh. Oh, I
You
forgot about that.
My microphone was muted during this run, so you can't
You
hear
must
my
have been
reaction.
freaking
I
out.
panicked so hard hitting that edge hit.
Oh, I forgot all about that, but I remembered it the moment I saw it. That was a moment. That would have freaked me out as well.
Olympus is my Achilles heel in this game. I die so much to this level in RTA.
And granted, everyone was at this time.
Yeah, and this period was probably like my worst luck with the level. I was just losing so many runs to Olympus, and I was getting this far without a death. And I was like, okay, I'm past the worst. I'm past the worst. That edge hit happens. No, not again, not again, not again.
And sure, it's a time loss, but it's not anywhere comparable to a death. And 221.
And it was just before a checkpoint, which always hurts so much.
Oh yeah, you have to go back into a whole new checkpoint from the beginning.
Anyway, check out this sick tangle.
Sick tangle, yep. This is good. Actually, having watched... Oh, you're going to drop down and go up again. Nice. You were one of the earlier people to do that, for sure.
Yeah.
In full game.
I don't remember who came up with that.
I did, yes.
Oh, you did.
Yep. Other than that ending, that's actually the same route that DK was using, though, way back in 2019.
There's actually something faster, but a little bit riskier that Chorrels came up with. Next time I run, I want to switch to that.
That would be interesting. I'd love to see somebody using that in a top level run.
I mean,
yeah. So Stratosphere is going to be the ending, and yeah.
Almost everything from this point on is kind of bog standard, so.
Sure, but it's also often one of the moments where you're the most nervous toward the end of the run, knowing, you know, one little mistake could throw away an incredible opportunity. But speaking of opportunities, this is kind of one of our last opportunities for you to say something about your time, speed, and rumble it up, or just kind of tell the audience whatever you'd like to say.
Yeah, this is probably the best 3D platformer I've ever played. Definitely the best video game community I've ever been a part of.
And I love that you're still a part of it. honestly, truly, even though, you know, you haven't been at the top of the speedrunning scene necessarily for the last couple of years, I love that you're still active in the community.
Cheers. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Awesome.
And time.
And time. Yeah, there's your 33:46, and that put you so high on the leaderboards to still be third place today and a world record at the time. But let's hear from Catzs.
Wow, I didn't have my microphone on the entire time. That's fun. Crap, I'm sorry. Hey, you know, shout out to Fennec Foxes. I think I'm ready to admit they're pretty cute.
All right, that was the Fennec Fox shout-out. Little iconic little moment there from your run.
Hi, Shiny Mew.
I still have no idea where that came from.
It's a friend of mine who has a slightly unhealthy obsession with Fennec Foxes.
Okay,
and I was just subtly shouting them out. That's it.
Okay.
And then making a funny Melee reference because I like Melee.
Yeah, you got those I guess you call them shines.
Flip. Yeah, shines.
Yeah. That's the sound effect.
Every fox knows how to do that.
Yeah, I guess we didn't really get to talk too much about your time. I know you've been involved in competitive communities, Smash. And...
Even though the run's over, we can keep going.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, we're not done this interview just yet. I mean, it was such a short run that we didn't have time to talk about all these things because you're so fast. Right? I mean,
Unfortunate.
That's just the way it is.
It's a pretty cool problem to have, let me tell you.
It's a pretty cool problem to have, yeah. Yeah, what a great run. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it down, and we'll go back and watch a little bit of this chapter 5 as we're talking. But yeah, so yeah, it's been great having you as part of the community and having you active. And not everybody who's kind of stepped aside from speedrunning has continued to be a part of the Marble Up community, but you've been a central figure, and a lot of people even who are newer players to the community still know who you are, still know kind of a little bit of what you've done and what you've accomplished in this game. Just because of your presence.
I try to stay positive and encouraging with people who are trying to run this game, and it kind of gets in the way that I have a bit of the humor of a bully, which just kind of gets people upset sometimes. I don't want that to happen, but the hard truth of it is that speedrunning is stressful, and it can break people's spirit, and it has for several members of the community.
That is sad. It is true.
I don't know.
I mean, I haven't speedrun this game seriously in quite a long time, and part of that is maybe not all of it, but certainly part of that is just because of how stressful and difficult it can be mentally. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and but you have been encouraging to a lot of newer speedrunners, and again, it's just one thing that I appreciate about you.
I try.
You try. Yep.
My mindset with speedrunning was always don't cut corners on any kind of fundamental strats. Whatever the fastest thing we have available to us, no matter what it is, if I can do it consistently, that's what I want to learn.
Right.
So even though, I mean, of course we can't do stuff that you were doing in Catzs, but
sure,
if I can figure something out, then that's what I want to go for in a run, no matter how many times I'm gonna fail it.
And in the long term,
that was my mindset with Stayin Alive. Like,
yeah,
the reason that felt impossible is simply because doing that for the first time is terrifying. That strat, the first time that I tried it, the first dozen times that I tried it, my thumbs were quivering atop the controller, just terrified to not slip up off that little beam. It's probably the most immersed I've ever been in a video game, which sounds weird, but
yep.
I don't want to fall off. I don't want to fall off. I don't want to fall off.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like a lot of other people attempting it for the first time have felt that too.
Yeah, but again, there was the mindset or opinion that without Stayin Alive, nobody would be able to beat Spikai's run.
Which was untrue.
It was untrue. It was completely untrue. But that was, I think, something that I thought, and a lot of other people thought, when you were going into with Stayin Alive, like that was what gave you a chance. But I don't think anybody questioned after this run that in every aspect you were able to keep up with anybody else who ever was able to play this game, certainly at the time. But I do want to ask a little bit about what potential there might be for you to speedrun, either to speedrun other games or to come back to speedrunning this game to in some capacity, or how do you feel about that?
Well, that is a well-timed question. In less than a week, a game that I've been excited for more than a year, Neon White, is coming out, and
okay,
I plan to speedrun every aspect of that game. I sunk like 70 hours into the free demo that happened during the Steam Next Fest.
Okay.
It's a first-person parkour platformer with the arcade-type level and timer structure of Marble It Up.
Interesting.
It's even got the 4 medal system. It's quite similar.
so from a first perspective, it sounds a little bit like Mirror's Edge potentially. In terms of the gameplay.
I guess being like a marble platformer speedrunner doesn't lend to it, but I do quite like FPS games.
Yep.
I think first-person movement in terms of game design hasn't been juiced in the same way that third-person 3D platformers or 2D platformers have been. Like,
Right.
Uh,
You've played Source games, you said. I think
Yeah.
Titanfall 2, which is a kind of a sort of Source game.
I've only done a couple speedruns of Titanfall 2, but that game really impresses me.
That
with
game has some
just
great movement.
how much there is left to learn about how movement can work from the first-person perspective.
Right.
And yeah, Source games as well. Rocket jumping in Team Fortress 2, surfing in any Source game is a style of movement that I think is really exhilarating and just hasn't been explored in any kind of mainstream game design.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I look forward to seeing some of the speedruns, and I'll be watching for you on twitch.tv/Catzs with a K.
I've been asked to cast someone else in the Neon White community sometime in August, I
Ooh.
believe, for their full game run of Neon White during a marathon, which, I mean, that game ain't even out yet, but I'm still going to do it.
Well,
So,
very cool. I look forward
keep
to
an eye
that.
out for me on that, I suppose.
And in case I am not able to get that stream, hopefully it will be posted on your YouTube, which is
Sure,
Catzs
I'll do
with
that.
a C.
The K is just because
Twitch.
CATZS was taken on Twitch. Yeah,
I
sorry.
know. All right. Anything else you want to kind of shout out or say before we head out for the rest of our time?
Well, shout out to the mainstays in the community: Hatchet, Spakai, Hiron, Savadra, Age Dude, of course.
And so many more.
Whoever that guy is. If you want to get into speedrunning or any difficult thing of any time, stick yourself neck deep in it, immerse yourself, and at the same time try not to lose the fun.
Very cool.
Do
Try not to lose the
difficult
fun.
things, stick your head out of your comfort zone, and you will be shocked with what you can accomplish.
Oh, well, that's actually really inspirational. Thank you so much, Catzs, for joining us. I think we'll leave us with a quick look at the current category leaderboard, just to show where Catzs is standing here on the leaderboard. And it's been a pleasure. You're a very special person in this community, and I've been looking forward to this Speedrunner Showcase for a long time.
Way too long. Way too long.
Way too long.
I'm sorry I wasn't able to do it 2 years ago.
No worries. No worries. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us on Speedrunner Showcase.